Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unique Peace. I'm Janice. I'm a Reiki Master Teacher and an intuitive here on Long Island. And today I am joined by the lovely Kellie Walsh. She is a professional photographer and the founder of the Divine Hive. She's going to explain what that is for us. And I'm so excited to have Kellie on. Everybody, join me in welcoming Kellie. Good morning.
Good morning. It's so lovely to see you again.
Yes. How are you on this great day?
I'm great. It's cold, but it's warm, and it's all good. It is winter, so it should be cold. Right? Well, complain when it's too warm, complain when it's too cold, but it's perfect.
It's perfect.
And I'm so excited to be on your podcast and to see where this conversation leads us.
Yes. I'm excited as well. And for those who don't know, yes, I did mention that you are a photographer, but the interesting thing is we met at the Healers Exchange in New York, in Brooklyn in October. And you're a healer, you're a channeler, and you take soul portraits.
Yes, I do. And what soul portraits is really actually has been a blending of my two worlds. I've been a professional photographer my whole life. I was lucky, I think I was like a junior in college and I picked up a camera. I took my first class in the darkroom and it was just like having a camera in my hand was just an extension of who I was. It just came so natural. So I was lucky to be able to, at that time, know that's what I wanted to be. And I followed that path my entire life until this point. I'm still a professional photographer and I've had a wonderful career. Photographed huge fashion brands, corporations, personal branding. But I also was, since my whole life, and especially since, in the 90s when I started doing morning pages and writing and just really tapping into that real deep spiritual side of me, I always had the two worlds separate. I had my spiritual world, my spiritual writing, and then I had my professional photography world. So then when Soul Portraits came along from a guidance and advice from another channeler who said, I'm a seer and, I need to bring the two worlds in. That's kind of how the Soul Portraits were created. And it's kind of my unique aspect of, photographing somebody, but also, we do, depending on what things, it can go really deeply into a deep meditation where we tap into the Akashic records and I bring them on a very personal journey of awareness and discovery. And then we do the photography shoot, or it can be where I did it for the Episcopalian Church, where it was just breathing and centering and then photographing them, because my friend that, is the dean of the church is like, hell, don't get too woo, just bring that in a little bit. So I brought in no Akashic records and talking to my ascended masters to just breath work and focusing on our divine heart. So it ranges to who sits in front of my camera at the time and what their goals are and what they're seeking, So yeah, so it's been a wonderful, I think I started it maybe 3 years ago and 3 or 4 years ago, combining the two. So it's been a beautiful adventure and experience for myself as well.
And as someone who was blessed with having a soul portrait session, they came out beautiful. And it's a different way of looking at the pictures are different. The pictures are just, they're different. Yeah. I can't explain it. And you're all going to have to go check it out for yourself. You can visit her website and check it out for yourself. The photography is amazing. And so we thank them for making sure you blend your gifts. So
we actually should just step back a little bit and say how that happened, because I think that is an amazing kind of synchronicity. And the fact that, so at this, in this Brooklyn, at this Healers Exchange, we were talking about when to do the soul portraits, if we should raffle them up front and announce. And I was going back and forth. I'm not sure if that was the right energy to do a private one-on-one soul portrait. So I kind of pulled back and said, let me just pull it separately, and maybe I'll reach out to them, and if I don't find them, I'll create a space and a place to do it separately from the event. So Janice was in my group. We're in a small group, about 6 people maybe, and then
there's about 6.
I pulled it out of the big jar. I pulled it out, and Janice, who's sitting right next to me, won soul portrait.
Yeah. You pulled out my business card and go, oh, that's me.
Yeah, was my mother's name. So there was a lot of, really deep connection right away for me with you. So.
And that connection is very helpful because the meditation was beautiful and it was like a channeled meditation. And it's a lot like when I do Reiki in a noisy space, when you get into that proper space within yourself, nothing else matters and you're able to just focus. There was what, close to 150 people around us, and you wouldn't know that.
Yeah. No, you're right. And it was a good experience for me because that was the first time I've ever did that in that setting. So I was kind of not sure how I would be able to dive deep into that, but you're right. Once you kind of just channel in, focus in and connect to that stream of consciousness, then it all fades away. So yeah, it was a teaching lesson for me, actually, that experience. So
beautiful. And going into how you blended the soul portraits with your spiritual, your photography with your spiritual side. You also have a beautiful retreat space and you are a channeler. Kind of walk us through how that happened.
Okay, sure. So, it started like the whole channeling for me started when morning pages are part of a book called The Artist's Way, which is a classic book. If you haven't read it, I think it was published maybe 20 years ago. You should still read it because it really talks about, creative people, and it talks about like how a lot of artists they're trying to create a career in that, how they have blocks and limitations, especially around abundance and wealth. And morning pages was a 3 pages of stream of conscious writing that she would recommend, pencil on paper, never lifting the pencil, just let it stream out.
Right.
So that was
really like
automatic writing. Yes, exactly. And that was kind of how I started going deep into that, and then realizing that there was a voice, there was a consciousness that was coming through. That was often now when I look at my writing and I'm like, did I write that? Like it does, like it seems familiar, but not familiar to me because it's a different voice. It's a different perspective. And so that's how I started the channeling. And also I speak in light language, which is kind of, I was in my 20s and I became a born again Christian, and I was part of the Episcopal, the Pentecostal kind of branch of Christianity, and they believe in speaking in tongues, like you be slain in the Holy Spirit. You're able to speak in tongues, which is the tongues of the language of angels. And I was able to do that in my 20s. And I always kind of was like a closet light language speaker. Like when I did my own meditations here, it would flow out naturally. So as the channeling got deeper and the writing got stronger, the light language got deeper. And so that really opened up my channel, my abilities to stream these high frequencies, to allow me to, especially in the guided meditations I do. And they've really, the more I do them, it's like a muscle. It's a spiritual muscle. The more I do them, the deeper I go, and the synchronicities that the people experience during the journey, and it just is really like, it allows them to like connect to a deeper part of them that helps remove obstacles that they might find in their life now, and then so through the soul portraits and the channeling, I definitely found a way through that medium to connect to their soul through the camera. And that session allows a space to open up so they can go beyond what they feel is their human form and experience their true essence. So it's just been kind of like a soup brewing. I'm thinking of a cauldron, kind of, with the writing, the channeling, the light language, and taking that and allowing myself to open up that as a photographer and using the lens as a medium to really move through this reality and see into a deeper space, into their hearts, and that they can experience it. And like I tell people, use that as a talisman, that photograph, that print. What I've been doing during my retreats is just like, I'll write light language, I'll print up a little 4x6, write a little light language message that I'm receiving, and have them put it on their altar as a reminder, So that's the question. All that with the retreat center. I mean, you asked a lot of questions. The retreat center happened because we bought a property upstate on the river. We have been doing Airbnb with it, and then when I was able to take the garage and renovate it, it's about 800 square feet for a mini photography studio and a place to do ceremonies. That was when I bought the place, or when we bought the place, I knew my intent was to create a retreat center. It's small, it only like 10 people max. The room itself can fit about 20 people. So last year I had 3, and they were beautiful. And again, each opportunity that I work with people, either one-on-one or in the retreats, I go dive deeper into my own abilities. I lift up. We all lift up together. So.
Yeah. Yes. And that helps bring some equilibrium and peace into our own lives.
Yes, it does. It really does. I feel very blessed about last year and the opportunities that I had. So, yeah.
And we're quickly approaching 2025. It's like going to be here in just a little while, a couple weeks.
No, definitely. I feel like it's interesting because I think 2024 was kind of like a realignment for everybody. It was like a shaking up for a lot of people, and I especially feel in the last, I follow astrology a bit, but I don't follow it that closely. I have some friends that dive deep into that, and they will give me these updates. And then later I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. From my own personal experience, especially the last couple months, really going in and asking myself, how do I want to reframe my life for 2025?
I love that.
How do I present myself in the best way to follow my soul's calling, and how do I serve? And what does that look like? And what does that look like as a professional photographer? That I've shot tons of weddings. That's how, weddings was my main source of income. We did, my husband and I started a business in 2001 called 4 Eyes Photography. I don't want to get into that. That's the whole wedding business. But that's how we kind of build our life on top of the weddings and that kind of work. But as I move into the 2025, how do I define reframing? How do I be able to find that abundance I have with the weddings, but not I love weddings. I still don't want to, I want to shoot them, but I don't want to shoot 30, 40 a year, because it's just too much. I don't want my energy going in that direction anymore, so the soul portraits, the retreat center, personal branding in the conscious world, where people are rebranding themselves through website design, and they want to have images that reflect that. That's where I see I'm going professionally as a photographer. So again, a big merging of the worlds.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as you're merging those worlds, has your definition, well, let's start off with, what is your definition of peace, your personal definition of peace, and has it changed over the years? So that's a twofold question.
I knew you were going to ask that question. And I've been thinking about it actually, as I kind of got ready for our conversation today. And that's a very, if I think about peace and what does peace mean to me, and it changes often, but I think peace for me is finding that deep well within my heart where I feel content where I am right now. And the fact where, I'm an Aries, I have ADHD, I discovered recently because of my guest at my retreat centers that were trauma counselors, like, do you know you might have ADHD? And then, of course, I looked it up, and I do. So I have these things where I've been a real type A personality and very driven for a lot of my life, and always looking for that, kind of, what's the next step? And I think when you're in that space, you can't find peace. You know, you cannot find peace. So for me, the lesson has been, and part of the whole reframing is finding peace in this perfect moment now. And how does that define? And I have to go back to that space and, you know, finding that, you know, because life is full of ups and downs. Being a spiritual being in a physical body, you know, an expression of the divine itself, we are meant to experience all ranges of emotions. And us as humans often define sadness as a bad emotion, and we all strive to be happy, but they're all expressions of the divine. So if you want to be sad, be the most sad you can, really feel it within your body, let it go as the tears come, and move out of your body and move out of that space, emote the emotion, and be as happy as you can, and then find that peace in between the high and the low, like that peace within. That's always your steadfast place. So that's really what I think peace for me is, within my heart, my divine heart. That kind of is like, you know, a blossoming of a rose, or, you know, I'm going to go to a cliche metaphor right now, but, you know, like this thing that begins to grow within as a seed of understanding. You know, I think that you're perfect in this now moment, right? And understanding. And that's what I'm kind of really trying to facilitate and develop within myself, because, you know, sometimes I don't have that peace because I'm striving, or I'm trying to plan this, or I don't feel comfortable in this moment now. So yeah, I have to just remind myself that I have to breathe and go into that space to find that peace. And then, kind of like when you said about the Reiki and the soul portraits, all the noise around us disappears.
Yes.
I
And
in that long.
No, it's perfect. I love how you said it's between the low and the high. Is that piece?
Yeah.
Because we've all experienced the low lows, and we've all experienced the high highs. But it's finding, again, that balance, the in between.
The in between. I love that phrase. The in between. So.
Yep. And so with that definition of peace and how it is morphed in your life, how do you personally find peace in your life? How do you bring it in?
I have to slow down to find peace. You know, and I can explain that a little. That was the first thing that popped into my head. Again, it's like we've been so programmed not to like be in this moment now, and understand that it is, you can like be in that in between space and expand that. You know, I think the biggest way to like really visually expand it is holding the breath between the inhale and the exhale, right? That hold, that pause, which can expand, it can get deeper and longer as you meditate and start to play with the breath itself and the rhythm and the cycle of your unique soul's calling within your breath. So, you know, I think I have to cultivate peace by reminding myself to go back to the breath every time, and become the observer a bit too, you know, to become the observer of my own life without agenda and judgment and expectations.
And that is not easy.
Oh no. Oh, believe me, I'm not perfect at it either. Downstairs. In my way, our partners are our biggest teachers. They can be our biggest teachers, and I remind myself that too. You know, because my husband and I have been together for a long time, and yeah, it can be a journey on its own. So
relationships usually are. So before we jump into the next question, I like to ask, you had said, or as we were prepping for today's show, that some things had come through for you today prior to our conversation. And as we lead into the next question, I'd like you to kind of start off with what came through before we move into the next one.
Sure. So this morning I did a long meditation, and a lot of my meditations lately, because I feel like I've been like, my whole body's been rearranged in my brain, and I think there's been a lot of upgrades personally for me. So I haven't received a lot of downloads, a lot of channeled message lately, but this morning I did. And I'm going to read it to you because I did write it out. How my channels start is usually I will get one statement that pops into my head, one clear declaration. And from there, if I quiet and listen, more information comes through. And at that point, I just start doing automatic writing. And the first thing that came was, you hold the keys to your liberation. So as that, message, that thought, that download, that intuition came into my consciousness, I just thought that what a powerful affirmation to know that we hold the keys to our own liberation, to our own freedom. And then I wrote a little bit more. I'll just read it to you quickly. That the chains that you think have bound you to another, or your own self-imposed limitations, are an old narrative in a false reality. A reality that you may have held on to, creating a life that reaffirms this self-limited experience. So we ask you now, but my guides always ask me something. We ask you now to remove these barriers, to remove the blinders over your eyes, and know that you have the keys to unlock the self-imposed prison, that you have the keys. And it's interesting because, this is all what a lot of times we give our power away and think that, this person has to change, or this situation has to change, so we can feel that sense of peace that we want, that we've been talking about. But it's, you hold the keys. It's how you change. It's how you move away the expectations from another, and you become very steadfast in who you are. So that was the message this morning.
Thank you. And Michael has joined us, and he's saying this is a great conversation. He's glad to be getting to know you, Kellie, and I'm so grateful that you are on myself. And that is a very fitting message at this point in time for everyone, I'm sure.
Thank you. Yes.
As that came through, I want you to kind of reflect on that for a minute. And then the next question I'd like to ask is, how do you help others find peace? How do you help others bring peace into their own lives?
Well, I think we can only help show the way, to be way showers. But, not just by example and by our word, but like, again, going back to the word, giving them the keys, the codes, for them to find the answer for what their unique definition of what peace is for them, because it's different for every person, and I think it's so important, as I was tapping into the energy of this conversation earlier, is that, people think of world peace, that's always a topic, especially now what's going on. But how important is individual peace? It's the same as that self-love concept, because how can we change the world when we haven't changed ourselves? And to change ourselves, we have to have that courageous heart to move forward and understand what works and what doesn't work, and that we hold the keys, that we're, and so during my retreats, when I do the channeled meditations, I work a lot with the chakra system, aligning and opening them as portals to our optimum blueprint of our physical, mental, and emotional, spiritual form. So I think that once they experience a retreat or a meditation, and they have that aha moment, and they feel that sense, I always feel such a deep peace and love when I connect to the divine. And when they have that own sense of that, it's that seed that they can plant here, and they can cultivate that and grow that. So I think that we can only, as facilitators, just help them, show them the way, and give them some tools, the breath, meditation, reflection, writing, and helping them move the way of our need to always want to be right.
Yeah. That's a hard one.
Yeah.
It's a hard one. The ego gets in the way. The ego always wants to be right. It wants its vindication, and it's not easy. I stick mine in the cocoon a lot. It's like, I know when it wells up. I know personally when I'm feeling a certain amount of anger, angst, upset, what have you. I know that It's that ego that wants to be seen and heard, and it's hard to step away. So what you're saying is spot on. It's like they have to see and feel it for themselves, and it's not always easy. So it's like
I
one
love
of the
how
hardest things.
that wanting to be right, and you put it in a cocoon. Like people can want to be that want to be right. Put it in a cookie jar, right? Like just pop that right in next to the oatmeal and the chocolate chip cookies, and leave it in there to get it, sweeten that up a little bit, right? Because believe me, like we're taught from childhood the idea that we need to be right.
Mhm.
We're like, that's how we're like, when you're a child, the justice of being righteous, and there is righteousness and there is being right. But I think when our egos get in the way of what we feel is right and wrong, there is no righteousness in that, because righteousness sees both sides.
Right. That is very true. And I try and be the one who sees both sides.
Yes.
And I don't know about you, and trying, seeing both sides and pointing out that both sides are right, and where both sides are right and where both sides are wrong has made me kind of like not the enemy, but the outcast. It's like, well, I'm just observing, but I'm not subscribing to either side.
Right.
The younger me would not say that.
Yeah.
But this me can say that, as like, I can see both sides, and I can see where you're both right, and I can see where you're both wrong, which makes me neutral. And I think that has a lot to finding peace too, is where you can be neutral.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're absolutely right. That neutrality is a beautiful place to be in. That's what we should teach our children, to learn about being that neutrality. It's not a bad thing. It's being able to take a step back and become the observer. And I'm very much like you. I've always, even since I was a kid, could see both sides and understand that, seeing from that person's perspective, because that's what creates their reality, and see this person's perspective because that's what their reality is, and understand that, there is no right and wrong. There's just that, like that, going back, like the highs and lows of emotion. That's that middle. It's just that middle spot. It's that middle spot. How can we come to terms of, where we both see, like, I think the reason people want to feel right is they want to be seen. That's really the underlying current of that wanting to be right. It's wanting to be seen. So if you can feel seen and understand that maybe, there's no right and wrong, there's just different perspectives of the same reality. So
yeah,
believe me, I'm being neutral too, can cause people to maybe, I don't want to use the word attack, but they can not understand why you don't want to take a side,
right.
And especially, I'm not going to get what's going on in the world, in America, the diversity and the anger that's happening. Like, it's really hard for people to stay in that neutral space, but that's what we really need to be, so.
Right. And when the ego is involved, that becomes very heightened, and it's very hard to be neutral.
Yeah.
Because, on a personal level, like globally, neutrality can be fairly easy. I'm not saying that it's super easy, but you can step back.
Yeah.
When it's yourself, it's a little bit harder. And, you have to accept being called out, and you have to accept that you have to take a step back and look at it from another person's point of view.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, that's so spot on, actually. It is easy to be neutral on a global sense, because it's, we're not seeing it in our individual reality or our day-to-day life. So it's much easier to be neutral, but when it's in our face or it's part of our life, it's much harder. And again, I think if we can teach people to have that sense of neutrality, I think it's really connected to the breath. Well, I think everything's connected to the breath, really. If people, before they speak or before they want to debate a situation, allow themselves to take 3 or 4 deep breaths, because the ego is always, the ego integrated into a higher mind, or the mind of God, or the mind of the divine. the ego is a good thing and has protected a lot of people that experience trauma as a child, has been the ego. So it's just an ego that's tethered to our higher selves is what we need to work on, you know, and that will help with finding peace, I believe, you know.
Yeah. And taking it from that kind of perspective for a moment, I just want to drop back to what's in your toolbox. So you have somebody that you're photographing, say, like when you went to the church and did the photographs, or even in the moment of doing our soul portrait session in that very public setting. How would you bring someone into peace as quickly as possible? You have 5-10 minutes, or like a bride, because I know that you were doing the wedding fashion week, which I didn't know was a thing until we met. It's like, okay.
Wow.
And that, you've got a room full of models and a bunch of wedding dresses, and you got to calm them down. Like, what would you do? I know you would do breath work, but is there anything else that could bring somebody peace that we could like pull out? It's like, okay, I remember hearing about this. Let me try it.
Well, I can give you 2 examples. Like, for instance, in bridal fashion week, working with the models or working in any kind of commercial photography sense, what I would do is like, I would actually I would like hold their hands and look in their eyes. It might be really uncomfortable, but like photography is intimate, Yeah. I feel like, again, it's about wanting to be seen. So if you just like, or even if I don't, like maybe if I just hold their shoulders and look at them and just, by looking at them, they actually start to follow my breath without them even knowing it. And that's a really good sense for them to find that peace within that chaotic sense. In regards to my retreats and my spirituality and doing soul portraits, where I have a much wider space to be able to go deeper, what I do and what I did for the Episcopalian Church project was I have people go into their hearts. I have them close their eyes. And this is for somebody that is deep into meditation or who is a Catholic and thinks that this is, not good. This is not, this is the dark side, So so like whatever their belief systems are, I feel like this always works, is I have them close their eyes. I have them put their hands on their heart. And I have them begin to feel the beating of their heart through the palms of their hand. And then I have them do the simple, easy breathing, 4 breaths in, hold for 4 breaths out. And then what I do, and this, I've done this, it's less than like, I think 3 or 4 or 5 minutes. And then I just have them envision that like a spark, a flame ignites in their heart, and it gets bigger and bigger. And as their heartbeat slows down, the flame gets bigger. Finally, especially when I worked with the homeless project for the Episcopalian Church, I had them feel that this flame all of a sudden encompasses them into like a sphere of flame and light, and that they would, and once they feel that around their bodies, that they feel safe, seen, and heard. That's it.
And that's beautiful. That is an important reminder, because it is about wanting to be safe, seen, and heard in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Yep. And I'm just, that visualization is a beautiful thing too. For when I go deeper into meditation, that those are for like kind of the mini ones that are, I was working with a church that they just really didn't want me to go any further than that. But when I do my own guided meditations, I take you on a very long, deep visual journey. I'll give you an example of this one I just did. It's really quick. It was a long meditation, but the point was, he came to my last retreat. He was in his 70s. He was a physical educator in high schools his whole life, but he always wanted to be an artist. He always wanted to draw, but he had this father wound where he had a father that said, you can't be an artist, you can't do this. So we always struggled with that. So when we did the meditation, and when I was tapping into him the whole weekend, I felt like Viking druid line and in his stream of consciousness. And so when I'm in there, I took him to this cave, and I often go to the cave where Babaji is, who's an ascended master. It's a place in the Himalayas I often take people to because I go there quite a bit. So I brought him to this space that is very special where I go. And as we're sitting there, I'm just explaining and visualizing the journey into the mountain, in the mountain. And then when I'm there, I said, oh, Thor's here. And in the back of my head, I'm like, Thor. What's Thor doing here? So, and I'm like, well, Thor's here. And I said, he wants to remind you of your lineage of, being, Viking, druid, a master of your own destiny. And he gives us a hammer for him as a tool for him to hold, to integrate into his bones, into his blood, and to take back that strength with him. So when he came out of the meditation, he's like, oh my God, he's like, you don't understand. When I was 12, the first painting I ever did was of Thor.
I love when that happens.
So, as I say, the more I'm going deeper into that kind of journeying with my soul portraits, I'm opening myself to, I guess, the Akashic records and abilities to tap into somebody's lineage, somebody's consciousness of experience in multiple lives, past, future, multidimensional lives. And that weekend, it happened for everybody that was at that retreat. And so I think that's the tools. He brought that tool, that visualization of Thor that was so special to him. He understood that he had that strength within. So that's what he left with. And I think through, the soul portraits as part of my weekend retreats, I think that is one tool that people will definitely go home with, So, but I love visual stories,
Yeah, you take them.
I do. We go together.
And in the realm of peace, in the world of peace, and where you're at now, and as we continue this journey individually and collectively, do you have any words you'd like to share or any guidance that we can all kind of take away with us this morning?
In the sense of world peace, just individual.
In general. Mm-hmm.
If we start with the individual piece, I think we have to unlearn the ideal that what we seek is outside of us. That we're on a constant, endless search for something that may fulfill us. And I think that once we realize and we step back from that no matter where you are in your life, and this is a lesson that's often not learned until later in life, that what we really have is always within us, as Kellie had said earlier about the keys, that we have been given the keys, but have lost the knowledge of how to use them and to unlock our fullest potential. I think great joy comes in when you follow your soul's purpose. We're not taught to follow our soul's purpose. We're taught to follow a career, motherhood, fatherhood. And all these are wonderful things that can bring joy and riches to your life, but they're not the deepest part of us. And when we forego the deepest part of ourselves, and these become the major part of us, there will be never peace or complete joy because they work in tandem together. We are here to co-create this reality with the divine through our thoughts, our words, and our actions. And when we realize how powerful we are as divine creators, that we can have both our souls calling and be a great mother, have children, have family, have a job that fulfills us and not fulfills what society tells us we need to be. I think once that paradigm shift happens and we can understand that freedom, that we have the keys to unlock all restriction. So we go from a life of restriction to liberation, and you find that path on your own. Allowing the synchronicities of people to come in your lives to guide you and aid you. There is never the guru sense of you find somebody that teaches you, and there's always a balance of they receive as well as they give. And that's an equal sharing and exchange of energy. And that is a true guru. There is never somebody that should be looked upon as this great teacher and you're less than, because there's always a give and take in an energetic exchange of wisdom, information, and the seeker that wants to expand their perspective, which of course is hence your reality.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm grateful. And thank you for coming on, taking a busy, part out of your Sunday morning to join us and talk peace. I'm very grateful for that.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I'm gonna have to replay that because I didn't hear anything I just said. And but it's been wonderful. I love this podcast, and I'm so grateful that you invited me as a guest. And we get to have this Sunday conversation that's just, has actually I have a lot of joy in my heart right now from this experience. And peace. So.
And peace. 1 second. I'm going to put Kellie in the green room. We'll be right back, Kellie.
Okay.
I want to thank everyone who has joined us today. And if you are watching the replay, I hope that you are enjoying it, and that if you like what you hear, that you continue to tune in, and remember to like and subscribe and to let us know that you are listening. Thank you very much and have a great day.